Hi, welcome to Wings for Life. We are in for a treat tonight. We have a very dear friend of mine who's going to be a speaker, Herman Delgado. Herman has, he tells me, 45 years of working with people in counseling and chemical dependency. Certainly for at least the last 13 years, he's been an instructor at New Mexico Highlands University, working with all the folks that are working on their degrees to become social workers and to do what he already does. He's an expert in the field. Then he is also the director of the Thresholds Mentoring Program, mentoring prisoners when they get out of prison and matching them up with the Archdiocese, and they can be people that are part of the Roman Catholic faith, or they could be anybody. They have a wonderful mentoring program that has been very, very successful. So Herman has been involved for so many years, and I know tonight we are going to learn a lot about chemical dependency and what family members can do to help anybody addicted in their family or any of their loved ones. So I am so happy, Herman, you're with us tonight. Welcome.
Thank you, Ann. It's great to be here, and I hope it is as exciting as you say it's going to be. I know I look like I'm 38, but I'm a little older. So I want to again thank you for having us. I want to welcome every family member, those of you that are in the facilities, that are watching, loved ones, so welcome. And I hope you learned something new about this topic of chemical dependency and what family members can do to help their addicted loved ones. Before I continue, I just want to say I'm going to be using the word addict, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to anyone or upset anyone. It's just a word that we use to describe individuals that are addicted. Primarily today, we're going to be talking about individuals that have substance abuse issues, chemical dependency issues. That includes alcohol and a variety of other types of drugs. So the presentation is based on a couple of issues. One is my personal experience. I'm in recovery. I've been in recovery for over 35 years. I had family members that were addicted. My dad was an alcoholic, and my foster dad was also an alcoholic, but he became involved in the recovery process. And we just buried him 3 years ago, and he was just a great foster dad. My biological dad, though, he died in the streets. You know, it was really sad to see him deteriorate and end up in the streets. He was a Bowery bum, and it was just really sad. The presentation is also based on my work in the field of addictions. Of course, you know, I went into the field to save my biological dad, right? And of course, I couldn't save him. We many times have difficulty working with our own families, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. How do we work with our families? What can we do to help ourselves? As I indicated, I became addicted at the age of 11. I was already getting high. And how did I learn that? Well, I'd go and sneak drinks from my dad when he was living with us. I would go and pick up a shot. I'd pick up a little beer. Next thing you know, 12, 13 years old, I'm drinking. I'm smoking cigarettes. I'm smoking weed. In those days, usually people did 1 or 2 drugs, not like today. Today, folks use a variety of different substances, so it's even more complicated today than years ago. So I went into the field to help primarily my family, which I did to a certain degree, but I ended up learning so much about systems and how we help one another, how we deal with each other's issues. So the presentation is also coming from the hundreds of families and individuals that I've worked with over the years. Before we get into strategies for families and what family members can do, we got to talk about a couple of issues. What we're going to be looking at in a couple of minutes is this model that I use to understand alcohol and chemical dependency. In order for us to learn how to deal with it, we need to know what it is. So we're going to be talking about that. We're also going to look at how each family member can deal with the addicted individual in the family system. And we're going to talk about strategies that each family member can use to help themselves and the addicted individual. It's not easy. This is extremely complicated and hard. One of the main points that I want to get to you tonight is no matter how hard you try to help your loved one, you never give up if they don't respond. You never, ever give up. You're always there for them. You're always trying to help them. The other point I want to make before I continue is at the end of the PowerPoint, you'll be getting the PowerPoint presentation. There's a list of resources that are available to you to use. Many of them are here in Albuquerque, in Bernalillo County, and in New Mexico. Some of them are online websites. There's one in particular about Drug-Free America as an example. That particular website gives you all kinds of information about alcohol use and drugs and side effects and how each of the drugs impact on the individual, the medical aspects of addiction, the psychological aspects of addiction, all kinds of information. It's important that you as a family member become educated and as knowledgeable as you can about the problem. We consider it a spiritual and family disease, and we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. But let me show you this model that I used to understand and use in the treatment of addictions or substance use disorders. It's a model that consists of 4 areas or 4 domains: the biological domain, psychological, social, and spiritual domains. Each domain or each area of a person's life has many components to it, or what we call elements. Those elements are what are impacted by the use of alcohol or drugs. Now, at the core of the model is the individual or the family system. So you can substitute either or, and we'll be looking at a diagram in a second reflecting that. And we'll use the model to understand how we as family members can address this serious issue. For short, it's called the Biopsychosocial Spiritual Model. This is the slide of the 4 areas, with the larger circle really being the spiritual aspect of the self, and yet it is also individually identified in the graph. So the first area is the biological area. The second is the social area. The third is psychological. And the fourth is the spiritual area or domain of the individual. The biological domain is made up of many elements. I'm only giving you 4 here for each. The genetics of the individual is certainly going to impact on their alcohol or chemical dependency and use, their physiology, their biochemistry, and of course all kinds of medical issues and everything else that's biological about that individual. It could be biological issues that are impacted because of a life event. It could be a medical problem that they have diabetes, asthma, whatever it is. The social domain consists of family, the family system, and how the individual operates in that family. Their culture, of course, culture is a very important aspect when you're talking about alcohol and substance use. The community that they live in, right? If you're coming from a poor community or an affluent community, the school that the individual is attending, etc., socioeconomic status, and all of those particular issues. The other area is a psychological issue. Your thoughts, your feelings, your behavior, all the mental health issues that evolve and develop when you're using alcohol or drugs. And then the spiritual domain, again, is a domain that encapsulates all of those areas. But I separated it here so you can see it a little bit more clear. Religion is definitely part of an individual's spiritual domain. The difference between religion and spiritual is basic. When we're talking about spirituality, it's the individual aspect of the person. The religious aspect is the social involvement in a particular denomination and the traditions of that particular denomination, its philosophy, whatever scripture they use to address the religious principles, etc. The person's ethics, their values and sense of being, etc. So all of these things are impacted when someone starts to use and unfortunately develop their addiction. Addiction disorders, remember, are spiritual and a family disease. Is very, very complicated. It's individualized. Each one of us is going to deal with our addiction in our own way. Everybody has the potential to become addicted. Anybody and everybody. It crosses racial, ethnic, cultural boundaries. Russia is affected the same way as Japan, is the same way as the United States. Doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter your socioeconomic status, your educational status. None of that matters. Any one of us can be impacted by addictions. It does have specific signs and symptoms, and the most important thing is that it's treatable. Now, a lot of problems in those 4 areas develop as your addiction progresses in its disease level. It's like diabetes. You may start with, may be pre-diabetic and then end up being diabetic where you need insulin. So you went from not needing anything, or maybe just diet or medicine, maybe a pill or 2, and now you're on insulin. Well, addictions and chemical dependency manifest in the very, very same way. Another thing you need to remember is that it usually takes many treatment episodes to help the individual. Just like diabetes, the pill is not going to help them alone. They're going to need the pill and diet and exercise. It's the same thing with addictions. We need to do several activities in order to heal ourselves. Now, there may be a complication which we call co-occurring disorders. Co-occurring disorders means that an individual will probably have a mental health issue and a chemical dependency issue. And they may also have medical or physiological problems. So that's the idea of having a co-occurring issue. Which one we have to address first depends on the severity of the symptoms that develop with each particular area. Now, the recovery process, or the getting better, as we get better, as we heal ourselves, takes time. It depends on the level of addiction that you're in, if the beginning stage, middle stage, or late stage. Individuals that we work with in the beginning stage, let's say you just start using drugs, that happens with adolescents, right? Usually that's when we start experimenting and we start using and trying things. Or someone like me, I was young, at 11 I was trying things. Or other people that are born addicted. If you're born addicted, you're in trouble because you already have a high potential for developing the disease. Just like if you're diabetic, you have a diabetic family system. There's going to be a probability that you're going to develop diabetes. It depends on what you do to prevent that. And one is for you to educate yourself. And that's the idea of tonight, to educate yourself so that you know how to deal with this particular problem and the strategies that you can develop to deal with them. What happens with a lot when you first get into treatment is you want to stop, but you can't stop. It is such a compulsive phenomena. You become physically addicted to many of the drugs. Some drugs and alcohol you don't get addicted to, while others you do. The ones that you become physiologically addicted to are alcohol, barbiturates, narcotics, opiates. Those are the primary ones. Others like cannabis, even methamphetamine. There is some evidence that you become physiologically addicted, but not as, you don't have the withdrawal symptoms that you might have with alcohol, barbiturates, and opiates. Withdrawal symptoms being you getting sick if you don't use alcohol or drugs. That's one of the problems with this. It's not only, psychological, or that, you can't stop because the devil made you do it. It doesn't work that way. You actually become physiologically dependent on the drugs. That makes it so much more complicated to deal with. When you get involved in the treatment process, you're going to have a lot of negative experiences, and these experiences we call bottoms. You're going to have a lot of bottoms before you say, all right, I need to stop. The beauty of it, though, is you can stop. Definitely you can stop. Let me jump now to what we as family members can do. Many times we feel responsible, or we blame the person for their addiction. This is a very complicated disease. Would you blame somebody for their diabetes? You might say, well, if you don't stop eating candy, or if you don't go and take care of your diet, it's going to get worse. Well, that's what we do in the addiction recovery process. We need to educate our loved ones about what it can do. As a family member, you might feel helpless and angry, frustrated, ashamed, or you might hate the person for what they do. You might, hate everybody, and that's going to be an issue for you. One of the things that we talk about in the treatment recovery arena, specifically the 12-step program, those are self-help groups. They have lots of slogans, and one of the slogans is, let go, let God. You can't control anything that the addicted individual does. There's no way you're going to control it. You got to let it go. And you got to let the individual go through their own experiences, no matter how hard they may seem to you. You need to let go. The beauty of it is that the individual can overcome the addiction once they get into the treatment process, which we call recovery. Now, let me give you some tips for what we can do, or what you can do as a family member. One is to develop your spirituality and meditate on guidance that you might need and that you might benefit from. That is so powerful and so important. The other issue is that you can heal. You can overcome the struggles and the problems that are going to be created in the family system because of that person's particular use. In some cases, the person is going to stay connected to you. In other cases, the person is going to leave you and you don't want to hear about them, and that's just what occurs in the addiction arena. Understand that the healing and recovery takes time. This doesn't occur overnight, where you just go into the hospital and you go into a particular program and you come out and you're okay. The compulsion, the physiological and the psychological issues that drive the addiction are just so overwhelming that it's really difficult to stop. Multiple stopping attempts have to occur for the individual to react. Some people can stop the first time they go to treatment. That's early recovery. But if you're in middle addiction or late addiction, it's a lot more complicated. You also want to openly discuss what's happening in the family system, especially with the children. If you don't talk to the kids about what's going on, they're going to feel the blame. They're going to feel that it's their fault, that mommy or daddy or their brother or sister are the ones that got addicted because of them. It was something that they did. So you want to make sure that you really talk to the family system. We often talk about an elephant in the room, right? And the idea is that you have this huge elephant in the room and no one wants to say anything. Well, you consciously, purposefully need to address this issue with your family. You also want to talk to the person suffering from the addiction and let them know that you love them. You don't want to yell at them or blame them, or that's not going to be very, very helpful. What you do want to do is make sure that they understand that you're there for them. You also want to develop an action plan that's going to help you and your family, first of all, and then the addicted person, secondly. Why the addicted person, secondly? Because you got to take care of yourself and your kids and your loved ones. The addicted person is so engrossed, so overwhelmed with their addiction. That's all they're thinking of. That's all they're doing. You guys have had experiences. We take the rent money and go out and get high. We take the money for Christmas and go out and get high. We don't take care of our financial responsibilities and in many cases lose everything we have. That's one of the bottoms that occurs before the addicted individual begin to say, okay, my life is falling apart. I have to do something else. You also want to make sure that you give them resources, that your family members, of course, that they have the resources available to help themselves. If they themselves develop mental health issues or they need counseling, you want to make sure that they get the resources. Again, you have a whole list of resources at the end of the presentation. One of them is the 12-step program. There are programs, one is called Al-Anon. That is for you. That is for family members. There's a phone number there that you can call and find out where all the meetings are. In Albuquerque, it's a self-help group. It's for free. You don't have to pay anything for that particular experience. It is very, very powerful. The other is Alateen. That's another group that's there for the adolescents. For those that are addicted, we have Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and again, you have the phone numbers on your resource list to go to those kinds of programs. There are all kinds of other programs that you can connect with, and again, they're on the list. The other things you can do is speak to your pastor, speak to your doctor, speak to school counselors, speak to somebody that you can trust, another family member, a cousin or your grandma, grandpa. And the idea is that you really begin to let go, let God let go of all the stuff that you carry that's related to the person's addiction, because it could be pretty rough. It could be aggressive acting out in the family system. People can steal from you. All kinds of things can happen. So you want to make sure that you let all of that out. And we talked about you educating yourself about addictions. Tough Love. There is a Tough Love website, and there was a Tough Love group. Tough Love is that you set real clear boundaries for the addicted person, and you let them go through their experience on their own. If one of the boundaries is that you cannot come into the house when you're high, well, then you need to enforce that. But you got to expect some acting out to occur. They may bang on the door in the middle of the night. You might have to call the cops. Then you're going to feel terrible because you call the cops and they get arrested and they get beat up. And they got to deal with the consequences of their own behavior, of their addictions. And that idea of tough love is a hard idea, but very powerful. The other idea is not to enable. Don't be giving people money. If they say, oh, I'm hungry, take them out to McDonald's to eat. Give them the food. Have a little care package when they come around and give them the care package. Don't give folks money. I'm going to go out and get high. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out and get some dope or get some drugs or drink and get high. Don't blame yourself. or other families, for the kinds of things that are going to happen. Always show love, encourage and provide support for them. If they need a place, to shower, you may want to allow them in and out, that kind of thing, or give them the resources. Today, there are tons of resources available for individuals suffering from addictions. I want to stress this point again. You never, never, ever give up on someone suffering from addictions, and don't give up on yourself. You're going to go through a lot of changes. It's going to be very hard, but people have healed from this. There are thousands and thousands of people that are in recovery, both the addicted individual and the family system. You want to focus on taking care of yourself and the other family members. I don't believe I've done this in such short time. This is a really complicated issue. We've just spent a tiny little bit of time on it. I just want to make a couple more points as a summary. Number one, addiction disorders are multifactorial. There's so many issues that come up. Number two, you can address the problem as a family member. You're not alone. It's not easy, but you can do it. I recommend that family members get involved in a 12-step program like Al-Anon, Alateen, and I always recommend for addicted individuals to become involved in the 12-step program. Use the resources that I've shared with you. There are tons more. Just go on Google and say, how to treat addictions. You'll be taken to all kinds of stuff. Treatment works, and you never give up. So that is the bulk of the presentation. I hope you heard at least one thing, and that one of these strategies or ideas is going to touch you and help you address the addict's problem and your problem as a family system. Take care. Good luck.
Wow. I knew he was going to do a fabulous job talking about a situation that is really a lifelong situation for so many people. Trying to address that in 30 minutes is really, really tough. Excellent job. And so many resources that are there. Now, you could go to our website at wingsfly.org. You could find a placemat that we have on there, and on that placemat it lists signs of chemical dependency in youth and adults. You can find that. You will find Herman's PowerPoint, and you will find all of the resources that he listed. And we have a few other attachments in that section as well. And so I hope if you are dealing with an addicted one in your family, that you will watch this over and over again and take all of the wonderful advice that he has given, because we need to help those loved ones, but we cannot put our head in the sand, and we cannot enable them to continue with that kind of behavior. If you are with us on Zoom, with Zoom, we are going to go to a breakout room here shortly. If you're with us on Facebook and YouTube, I'm going to close with our story and remind you that next week we have a wonderful speaker, Marty Wolf. She's on part-time staff with us now, and she's going to talk about the various personalities that surviving and thriving in a world of different personalities, and talking about how there are 5 different personalities, and how the more that we know about the various personalities, the better off we're going to be in workplaces, schools, families, whatever. So I'm very excited about that. It's going to be a fun learning experience for all of us. So please join us for that. I'm going to close this session with a story. It's called Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. So this is kind of the story of somebody that goes through addiction and all the various steps that they go through. So this is not an easy solution for anybody. We need to be there. We need to be loving and kind and supportive, but not enable. So I hope you'll stay with us now as we go to breakout rooms. I know you're going to have a lot of questions for Herman, and he can hopefully address a few of them in the short time that we will have, and then be able to help you hopefully find the resources that you're going to need to be able to deal with this very difficult situation. Thanks so much for joining us. We sure appreciate your being here tonight. Hope to see you next week.